Let me guess. You've seen people talking about AI in finance all year long, but you still don't know what they mean when they say token or LLM or retrieval-augmented generation. Well, in this video, I'm going to walk you through 15 fundamentals of AI. No matter how new you are to the technology, this is going to get you up to speed on all of the basics you need to know to not only hold your weight in a conversation, but to also start using the tools yourself. This is absolutely critical to your career because AI today is like Excel was 30 years ago. If you don't know it, you're going to get left behind. And I don't want that to happen to you, so let's get rolling. Welcome to the channel. If you're new here, I'm Mike. I'm a senior finance leader, and over the last decade, I've worked in finance everywhere from brand new startups all the way to the Fortune 100. And over that time, I've helped companies automate more than 50,000 hours out of their processes. Don't worry, you don't need to be technical to understand this video. This is going to be the building blocks of AI explained in the easiest way possible. A lot of others might want to gatekeep this technology, but I want to make it as accessible as possible, and that's exactly what you're going to see in this video. So here are 15 things you need to know about AI. I highly encourage you not to skip ahead in this video because each section is going to build on the last section. Again, this is the building blocks of AI. So while you're absolutely able to skip ahead, if you go through the 15 steps in order, you're really going to understand what makes AI tick and how it can help you. Number one. What even is AI? What we call AI today, or generative AI, is a prediction tool. All it's doing is, in a very complex way, predicting the next word, the next number, or the next pattern. You can think about it as the world's most advanced autocomplete. It's like a super-powered Excel forecast, but it's for language instead of numbers. But it's the same concept. The tool is just forecasting what's most likely to come next based on all of the data and experience that's been fed into it. But it's really important to understand that even when we say AI is thinking, which I'll get to later, it doesn't think. It's just a prediction engine. If we keep going down the parallel that this is like a forecasting model, then this is a perfect analogy to understand that sometimes the forecast is right, sometimes the forecast isn't correct. And we all know that you can't just run a forecast and have it be accurate right off the bat. It requires some additional human interaction and support to get it where it needs to be. And that's a great way to think about AI because, again, it's not thinking, it's just predicting. Number two, large language models, usually shortened as LLMs. Large language models power the majority of the AI tools that you're going to come across today. They're trained on billions of examples, and they're not memorizing those examples. They're finding patterns in the language. This is very important, so I'm going to say it again. They are not memorizing the language. They're finding patterns so that they can do that autocomplete or that forecast. You know when you go to Google and you start typing in a search and then it has a bunch of recommendations for you? It's the same thing. Google hasn't memorized all those answers. Google hasn't memorized exactly what's going to work for you or what other people have searched for. Google knows what similar searches have ended up being. It knows those patterns and it's offering those patterns to you. That's, again, a great way to think about the LLMs. They're understanding the relationships between words, formulas, and logic. They're understanding the structure, but they're not, again, memorizing the exact content, and they're not going to give you exact existing content word for word. It's all about the patterns of the English language. Think of it like a well-read intern who's seen everything online, but they can't remember everything that they've read online. They can just remember the gist. They can paraphrase. They can pull together structures that they've seen, but not replicate the content exactly. And that's a large language model. So how do large language models get built? First, engineers feed the model with massive amounts of text, journals, textbooks, web content. That's often why you'll see people joke that M dashes just magically appear everywhere. So much academic content that tends to feature M dashes more heavily has been fed into these models and trained that it just starts to replicate something that isn't normally seen in casual writing. After it's been trained on the data, it will be run through machine learning and run learning patterns. It's going to figure out which words tend to appear together and in what order. Then humans will go through a fine-tuning exercise, helping it sound more helpful, accurate, and hopefully polite and down to the point. And finally, it's going to do an inference. When you ask a question, it's going to predict the most likely response based on what it's seen before, based on the structure, based on the patterns. So at the end of the day, an LLM is not magic. It's no different than going to Netflix and having it recommend content based on patterns that it's seen across other users. It's just a massive prediction engine that's been fed with more content than anything we've seen before. for. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to my free weekly newsletter, Finance Automation Insider. I send a brand new copy with tips, tricks, and hacks just like this, and I don't want you to miss a thing. Plus, when you subscribe, I'll send you a free copy of my guide to 15 5-minute finance automations that you can put into place today. A lot of them will work great with the new AI skills you're building today. Large language models operate on a currency called tokens. You may have heard this term tossed around because this is ultimately how we pay the AI companies for using the models. A token is a tiny piece of words. You can think about it like syllables for the computer, except they're not always exactly syllables, and I'll show you what that means in a second. They're approximately 4 characters each. They can be a little bit longer or a little bit shorter. And like I said, you're billed per token used, both the tokens that you send to the large language models and for the tokens that are sent back from the large language models. So efficiency really matters. So what does this look like in practice? Well, a human word like revenue would be broken down into re and venu because those are the syllables that the token understands. Grew will stay grew. 10% will be split into 10 and percent because it's going to break up different kinds of language. It's going to separate the numbers from the symbols. In Q2 is going to do the same thing. It's going to separate in and Q and 2 because it's not going to put different types of text or content together. And then due to will just be broken up and stay in the words because again, it's below that 4-character limit. So tokens may be a full word. They may not be. They'll be about 4 characters. And again, this is how the AI models intake the information. And one step beyond the billing, which we know in finance we all care about, this is also the limit of some of the models. Models have token limits of what they can remember and what they can process. So it's important to be cognizant that you can't always just throw a 100-page PDF at everything. Not only will you be paying a ton of money for it to intake that content, but some of the models simply can't handle it. So those are many of the ways that tokens are important. So now for number 4, how does AI work based on the 3 things that we just learned? First, you ask it a question. The AI model is then going to break the prompt and questions you gave it into tokens like we just saw. It's going to predict the next tokens or the most likely tokens that respond to the question, and it's going to run that process over and over to give you a full response. Again, it's not giving you content it's memorized. It's giving you the patterns that it's seen before, and it's running that pattern thousands of times. Then it will compile all the tokens and hopefully give you the output that you asked for. If you're ever seeing this work in practice, you can actually go into ChatGPT, click on the 3 dots in the top right of your screen, and click View Raw Response. This is going to show your text being parsed out into the tokens. It's going to show the model responding and predicting based on those tokens, and it's going to show a compiling response to come back. It's not something you need to know on a day-to-day basis, but it will help you understand these parts we're starting to put together, these building blocks we're constructing of how the AI tools really run. So now that we know more about the AI models, well, what can AI actually do for finance? Where is it valuable knowing what we know about the models? It's very valuable to summarize reports and phone calls. It's really good at working with language. It can help classify messy data because it's so good at predictions, because it's so good at knowing patterns. It's really good at knowing where there are outliers. It's really good at knowing where there's things that don't belong. So it's great at that. It can do some analysis and calculations if it's in patterns it has seen before and if the data is straightforward and simple. It can generate commentary and slides. Again, it's very good at working with language, and it can explain complex topics in plain English. A lot of times when you hear me talking in metaphors on this channel, I've given a topic to ChatGPT. I'm asking it to give me 5 different metaphors that I can pick from to better explain it. It's seen so much language that it's going to come up with a lot more robust examples and metaphors than I ever could. Even though I have a deep understanding of the content, it helps me communicate it to a broader audience. So these are some really valuable things that AI can do for you. Now, on the flip side, what AI really struggles with and you want to keep in mind, this all goes back to the fact that it's a pattern machine. It doesn't memorize the information. This means that AI is prone to things like hallucinations, where it will just create a topic to fill in the gaps. In some of our future building blocks, I'm going to give you tools to overcome this, but it's important to remember that not everything that comes back is accurate because it's based on predictions. Oftentimes, AI models will struggle with outdated data. Well, many tools like ChatGPT and Gemini can now connect to the internet and get live search results. A lot of the models are trained on older data, and for recalling facts, they're going to be trained on a snapshot of the internet, not necessarily the live data, so you want to be careful there. You want to be careful with numerical precision. Well, they can do some analysis where they can look at patterns and trends, instance, AI tools struggle with math, sometimes even basic calculations, because again, they're really designed around language, not around numbers and math. So it's important to be careful when you work with numbers. And lastly, missing context. AI is just going to make a prediction if you don't give it all the information it needs. If you don't tell it what your job is, if you don't tell it what kind of company you work for, if you don't tell it what, seasonality impacts your business, it's going to make guesses. It's going to partially really hallucinate, and it's not going to give you what you need. And that's really important. Now, again, all of these are things that we can solve for, and we're going to look at this in building block number 8, but I want you to keep these all in mind that these are inherent limitations of these large language models we're working with. Have any questions so far? Go ahead and leave them down in the comments. I read and respond to every single question, and I'm more than happy to help. Number 7, not all models are created equally, and you want to use different tools for the different results. ChatGPT is the most popular. It's from the company called OpenAI. It's best for writing narratives. It's honestly best from what I've seen for data analysis, and it's the absolute best for things like Excel logic. It tends to be the most balanced tool. It's the best at everything, but not the best at any one thing. But it is really strong at financial storytelling. The hallucinations can get pretty bad. It's gotten a lot better with 5. It was a little worse in 4. And if you point it to the internet, that will also calm down. Paid tiers are required for the advanced tools, but ultimately a lot of the other AI tools you're looking at on the internet don't have their own models. Most of them are pointing right back to ChatGPT because, again, it's the best known. Next, there's Claude from Anthropic. This is best for reading long documents, internal policies, 10Ks. It does a lot better. It handles more tokens. Claude can handle massive context, up to 200,000 tokens. It's much stronger than the basic versions of ChatGPT. You will find that the responses are sometimes slower. It's more cautious in its responses. It's going to hallucinate less. Next, there's Gemini from Google. If you're working in a company that uses things like Google Sheets and Gmail, it's a great tool because it's integrated right in those. It has live search. It's honestly the best for live search. No shock from the company that invented Google. Multimodal tasks, it's really great at those. It can pull in fresh data. It reads charts really well. It does PDFs, probably the best of everything I've seen. But it is still a little bit earlier. It doesn't have quite the breadth of tools that ChatGPT and Claude have, but it is catching up quickly. Lastly, there's Microsoft Copilot. I'll tell you that it's a pretty limited tool. The creativity isn't great. It really needs clean data models to work, but the biggest benefit is it's built right into your finance stack if you use Excel, PowerPoint, Teams, Outlook. It's also the best for enterprise and the one you're most likely to have access to use with work data because there's an enterprise version that integrates right with the Office 365 suite that many companies use, and it's hosted on your own servers, and none of your data feeds back to the models. Things like that are possible with all 3 other options, but this is what most companies have because Microsoft is honestly just doing a great job of selling it in with the existing products, and it works right in with those existing products. So if you don't have a choice, and Copilot's what you've got, go ahead and use it. It's going to be the best thing you have access to. If you have a choice, I would personally lean the most on ChatGPT, supplementing with Claude and Gemini where you need to. Now, let's talk about prompting, because this is how you're going to solve a lot of the challenges that I've mentioned with the AI tools, keeping in mind what AI tools need to be most successful. For this, I developed what I call the SPARK framework. The SPARK framework is an acronym to help you remember how to prompt. S is set the scene. This is where we give the context. Act as a financial analyst. Act as a financial analyst for a software as a service company. P, provided a task. I need you to do this. I need you to analyze my last 6 months of historical data and help me understand the trends that are happening. Background, this is where you'll give it some additional context. This is where you can give it data sets that you needed to analyze. This is where you can give it prior analysis. This is where you can give it your working papers. This is where you can add kind of that extra layer of data and context. R, you're going to request an output, exactly what you're looking for. I'm looking for an Excel file back. I'm looking for a couple of paragraphs back. And lastly, and I think most important, is K for keep the conversation going. I mentioned that hallucinations can be a big challenge with AI tools because they're predicting. You can stop a lot of the hallucinations, probably 90% or more, by saying, if you have any questions, if I've been unclear, ask me to clarify. Because then the AML is going to stop. It's not going to try to fill in the blanks with its own information. It's going to ask you for context that it's missing or for things that it doesn't understand. This will really stop the tools from guessing and give you much better responses a lot faster. Context goes hand in hand with the SPARK framework because it's designed to provide context, and this specifically focuses on S, setting the scene, and A, adding background. That's again Spark, S-P-A-R-K, S and A. There's three kinds of context to consider as you prompt your models. There's role context. This is who the model should pretend to be. Again, act as a financial analyst. This is kind of that set the scene. Data context is what it should work with. This is the background. This is the files you want it to analyze. This is prior analyses you've done, anything that may be helpful. And then instructional context, this is how you want it to respond. This is the output that you're looking for back. I want this in an Excel file. I want this in paragraphs. This is the type of context you need to be thinking about every time you prompt to, again, start to frame up the large language model and narrow the predictions it's going to make to give you a better response faster. Now, here's a really scary sounding word, retrieval-augmented generation, also sometimes spelled RAG for shorthand. This sounds really scary, and you'll hear a lot of people say this to sound all kind of techie and smart. Ultimately, though, it's not nearly as scary as it sounds. All it really does is it lets AI look up information from your documents before replying. This is an area that you'll find that Gemini and Copilot are really effective because they're already in those ecosystems, and they can pull from SharePoint, they can pull from Google Drive, they can pull from your data lakes. This will let the tools come back and give you citations, which will nearly eliminate hallucinations because they have access to the data. So really, as we think about retrieval, augmented, and generation, the model's going to search for content from your document store, again, whether that's SharePoint or Google Drive. It's going to use this data to augment the prompt and provide kind of that additional context that we're looking for without you directly having to do it. Then it's going to generate answers based on that material combined with the predictions for the text and the analysis side coming from the large language model. But again, as I mentioned, the large language models don't have kind of those facts memorized, their patterns. They are able to intake these facts that you're giving them and then use that to inform the predictions. The best way to think about this is as a filing cabinet or as even like a close binder that you'll sometimes give to executives. Without the close binder, they're flying blind in the meeting. Sure, they can draw on prior experience, they can draw on patterns they've seen before, but with the close binder, they have exactly the answers they're looking for. They can respond in real time based on current information and not have to infer anything and not have to make any predictions. They've got the information they need. Same as opening up a file cabinet. That's retrieval augmented generation. This is also why I really wanted to do this video, because I've heard people just tossing this term all over the place, acting like people are supposed to know. And honestly, I didn't even know at first what this meant. I knew this concept, I just didn't know it was called this. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the channel. I post new videos like this every single week, and I don't want you to miss a thing. Number 11, embeddings. Another scary sounding concept that really isn't that scary. What this does is it turns sentences into number vectors. Think about it like a semantic map. It finds similar ideas, not just keywords. The best way to think about embeddings in a finance context is to think about it like general ledger account codes. It's grouping similar items together based on a certain standard that's been assigned to it. So it could be things like office supplies, it could be things like marketing expenses. Vectors are doing the same thing for content. These vectors or the embeddings are how the AI tools work with the retrieval augmented generation. It's not storing your exact PDF. It's taking all of the information, it's grouping it together in a way that it can quickly and easily access it. It's not physically storing a PDF, it's storing the PDF's information in different groups of context that are related. So then when you prompt, your prompt is turned into a vector just like the data that's been stored. The AI tool is going to compare the vector of the prompt you just asked to the vectors from your stored documents. It's going to find the closest matches, the snippets whose meanings are most similar to your query. And then it's going to return those snippets as context for the model to read. Again, all going back to that context. It's like an indirect prompt where you have your main prompt and then it's going to get additional information to build that out and help make those better predictions. Number 12, fine-tuning. You can't expect a model to just know how you need things done right off the bat. You need to train your models on past reports, memos, commentary, anything you can get your hands on. This is an additional layer of context on top of the core model. Well, the core models will look across kind of all of the English language and all the resources that are available. With the fine-tuning, you can customize it to your company's specific needs. It can learn tone, it can learn the metrics and the way you prefer to talk about them and how even you like things phrasing. This will help you keep outputs consistent and on brand. While the tools do work off the shelf, this is a critical layer of context that you really need to add when you're using this in a professional setting. Number 13, chain of thought. Now, I've spent most of this video telling you that the tools can't think, they're predicting, but there's a caveat to that in that you can have them predict in a structured, logical manner. If you add to your prompt to think step by step before answering, or even in some newer models like ChatGPT-5, you can turn on a thinking button or tell it to think longer. This forces the tool to use logical reasoning. This makes it answer slower, this makes it process more, and it reduces careless or shallow answers because it's going to do some processing of the tokens. It's going to evaluate that to see if that even makes sense. It's going to process again. It's going to evaluate to see if it makes sense. It's going to start working in multiple steps. It may go get some information, process that information into a vector, then reevaluate your question. It's not really thinking. It's still running the predictions. It's just running them in a logical step-by-step way that gives you back better answers and starts to look like logical reasoning. This becomes really important for some of the new tools coming online that we're going to talk about in the next couple of steps. This is really critical for our last two building blocks because it's how the newer tools coming online work. Number 14, multimodal AI. So I spent the majority of this video talking about large language models, but there are other models being developed that are customized for images, for charts, for PDFs, for screenshots, for tables that are trained on things aside from language. These are really great for things like report summaries or creating visual commentary, and they can show instead of tell for faster insights. Now, all of this will come together and really make sense in step 15 with AI agents that you've probably been hearing a lot about. But it's important to understand that there are other models besides large language models that are different tools that you can work with, all trained for a specific purpose. And it becomes very powerful when you put them all together. And lastly, number 15. A year ago, we were really just focused on generative AI, which is the chatbots, ChatGPT, Claude. But now we're really starting to focus on AI agents. How are AI agents different? Well, an AI agent is just an AI model that's connected to different tools and data sources. It's up-leveling the capabilities so the AI tools can give better and better outputs. Most importantly, the AI agents can make decisions and take actions using its tools automatically. This goes beyond just answering questions in a chatbot. Think about the difference between a finance intern who kind of waits for your direction to do anything versus an analyst or a senior analyst who doesn't need to wait for you to tell them what to do. They know the core parts of their job, and within that framework, they will go execute their job without stopping to check in with you. AI chatbots are designed to give you a response to your prompt, the best possible response, but a response to your prompt. AI agents, however, are designed to work towards goals, and they can execute multiple steps in service of those goals. First, they'll receive a goal. That's when you give them the prompt, but instead of, again, a question or an output you need, you're giving them a goal to accomplish. The tool will then plan the steps it needs to do to best accomplish that goal. It will go out and use different tools in service of that goal. Most importantly, it will reflect and adjust. If something comes back and it didn't work, it can try again in a different way. If a response that comes back doesn't make sense, it can send back to another AI tool for a different response. And finally, it will deliver you an output not based just on a question or a prompt you gave it, but based on a goal or a broader set of tasks that you gave it. And this is where we're really at now, is that a lot of different AI models are starting to come together and work together in these agentic AI systems that can do a lot more than just answer a prompt. If you've enjoyed this video, I highly encourage you to check out my video on getting started with ChatGPT. This is going to show you hands-on how you can get some finance work done using ChatGPT, and it's going to build on top of all of the skills we learned here, but to start putting it into practice. I'll catch you over there. Until then, this is Mike signing off from F9 Finance. Cheers.